Welcome to episode one of the A Zone. My name is Connor Knutson. I'm a USPSA production master, and I've been shooting USPSA for about 3 years now. So, Calvin, you're up.
Hi, my name is Calvin Trong. I am also a USPSA production masterclass shooter, and I've been shooting for roughly 4 years seriously.
Matt,
Hey, Matt Chua. I'm a master in carry optics. Been shooting seriously for about 2 years now.
and Coy.
Hi, my name's Koi Win. I shoot PCC. I'll see myself out. I'm a master. I shoot open now because my friends make fun of me.
All right. Thanks,
Bullying
guys.
does work.
All right. So, on the schedule for today, we're going to talk about the most important practical pistol shooting skills, what we think they are, and how to train those things and why they're the most important. So I think we can go around the circle and do our top most important one. I know there's a lot, and then we'll talk about them. So let's go with Calvin. You're up.
So I think the most important skill, and this is like for everybody, is being able to grip the pistol in a way that no matter how you pull a trigger, you're generally going to hit your target. I know people mention grip a lot, but they really don't explain what the grip does. So that's, I think, the most important part is being able to hit the target. And then the other part of the grip is having a grip in such a way that your gun returns to where it was, so you can fire successive shots and they end up in the same general area. So that's probably the most important thing to work on when you're new. And if that stuff is not all there, or if it's not at a decent, base level, no, all your other skills, you're not gonna know whether it's the grip that's messed up or your transitions or your trigger control, because you are gonna need some trigger control when you start getting into the small targets like your head boxes at 15 yards or so. I mean, you're gonna need some trigger control, but if you have a terrible grip, you don't really know what to isolate for your training or your mistakes.
Yeah, yeah, I'm picking up what you're putting down. So that's a good one. So if you wanted to go out and practice your grip, if you thought your grip was lacking, what is your go-to top one drill to do that?
I mean, for me, that's doubles. And and so I actually had to relearn my grip recently, and I found it way faster to work on my grip is if I put my phone on a tripod and use like the slow-mo camera, and I actually recorded every single run of doubles, so I had information to make adjustments off of, as opposed to just standing there and pounding out like hundreds and hundreds of rounds every session, especially in 2021 where ammo still costs like an arm and a leg.
Yeah, that's a good one. And so for anyone not aware, doubles is effectively just shooting pairs of shots at a close range target, pretty much as fast as you can pull the trigger for the split time in between the two shots, and then taking like a pause to reset in between pairs. So and so what he's saying is watch what the gun does as it recoils and then how it returns from recoil, and use your eyes watching the sights or the camera watching the gun to watch see what adjustments you can make to your grip to make that work better. Am I getting that right, Calvin?
Yeah, and you're gonna make micro adjustments, where you're gonna apply pressure on the gun and in your hand. You might want to change. You're gonna change things up. It's gonna be different for every person, depending on their shape of their hands and also the shape of the gun.
Cool, cool. Well, I like that. You picked the easiest one to pick, but you got to go first. So,
I feel
but
like it's
all right,
one that
Matt.
people forget.
It is. Yeah, I'm giving you a hard time. It is. It's probably. I think I agree with you that it's the most important. But Matt, you're up. What's your top shooting skill, and how do you practice it?
Top shooting skill. I think for me, it's how you use your vision. So a lot of things in this sport are heavily vision based. So how you see a target, how you may see some kind of obstruction, and then also seeing when you have an appropriate side picture for the target that you're engaging. So that that also depends upon where the target location is. Let's say something you're going to see something slightly different at 7 yards compared to 25 yards. So when that sight hits back down at 7, you're typically just going to slam that trigger again. Or if you're going to see something at 25 yards and say, all right, let's wait for this sight to come back to the general A zone that I want to engage. And then I'll go ahead and hit that trigger. Now, the way that you can train that is pretty easy, and you can really just train it in dry fire. You don't really need ammo. You just look to a spot, and then you say, okay, I'm going to look to that spot, or you can also program that in, that kind of thing, and have simulated target distances between a simulated 7 to however distance you want.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. So for me, at least, I think if I'm practicing, I kind of think of that almost as like not just vision, but confirmation as well.
Correct.
So if I'm practicing that, I do that almost entirely in dry fire, but I need to have kind of the context from live fire of, like how much do I need to see before I can press the trigger. So does that kind of resonate with you, or what do you think about that?
A little bit, but also for me, vision will dictate whatever speed I get to engage at, basically.
Mm-hmm. But and so what or how stable of a dot, let's say, how stable of a dot you need to see at the spot you're aiming at before you're good to push the trigger for a given target difficulty. And that comes from just knowing what happens when you shoot with different, if you just see a blur of a dot or if you see like a solid stable dot, right?
Exactly. And then also part of that is also stemmed from what Calvin said, which is grip.
Okay, cool. Yeah. That I think is definitely a good one. I think that one particularly is another one that you can work in dry fire, like you said, a bunch. Whereas grip, you kind of have to just hammer it out with live fire. So, all right. Well, thanks, Matt. Coy, you're up.
Oh man. Okay, we're gonna go a weird place, guys. I don't know if I've ever actually talked to anyone about this. So my top shooting skill is actually theory. What I mean by that is, without going through like a whole crazy thing on like learning theory, the perspective that you use to do things and the perspective that you have to learn things pretty much predicts everything else. I'm willing to bet that a lot of us know guys that grip the gun well, but are terrible at shooting. And conversely, people that see really well, but are also terrible at shooting. But marrying them two together makes the whole thing. I think learning's, you don't have to like read books all the time, but I think learning a certain amount of theory takes you to where you want to go.
So you're kind of saying like no, like you can pick up the raw individual skills, but you kind of have to know how to apply them.
That's right.
And so do you think you can get that from just showing up to matches and just getting experience over a long period of time, or do you think you have to go, like really go out of your way to learn that?
So yes and no, because not to make it too complicated, but I think actually a lot of people take the first path and they go to matches. They go to a lot of matches even, or they go to practice a lot and they don't get anywhere. Like it's perpetually trapped in B class kind of things. And they'll even say things like, well, I'll just go practice a lot instead of go shoot matches and then I'll figure it out. It's like, well, it turns out you can't just go pull the trigger 1,000 times and get better. You actually have to kind of think your way through it, I suppose. And some guys, the guys that are at the top of the sport, there's probably a little bit of confusion about this because the guys at the top of the sport are like, I shoot 100 rounds a year or some crazy number that's kind of outlandish like that. And the guys that just get into it are like, well, I shoot 100,000 rounds a year. So there's a little bit of a of a gap in what they're doing with things, right? Like some of it's very intentional and some of it's very I don't know, unintentional. I'll just go with that.
Like brute force.
So what you're saying is
exactly
I should
thinking about it.
shoot 100 rounds a year. Got it.
You heard it here first, people.
No, I get it.
Also, and I think, go ahead.
Uh, okay, so I learned how to shoot the dumb way. I did it the first way, where you just go to the range, you go to the matches, and you just shoot a fuck ton. And I got up to, I guess you can say I got to master that way. I did it the really, really dumb way, just lots of repetitions and just slamming reloads, slamming draws, slamming doubles, and just doing everything by force. And I recognized that after maybe a few months after making master, that I wasn't getting any better. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think it applies more to once you reach your like a plateau, because if you never learn like the hard skills, then you'll never reach that plateau, IMO. But yeah, I mean, I definitely went through that. I don't know if you guys did, because I guess I've been shooting longer, like in terms of years, than everybody else here. I did the whole like watch the Magpul DVDs and went on the forums and listened to every like boomer FUD advice there was. And I practiced I practiced everything the wrong way and had to relearn how to shoot again. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And I think once you have some experience, and not just experience like driving yourself to matches, but like experience, trying to seek out all this information, I think once you get that, you start to be more efficient in your practice. So whereas it might take someone at like a B class level 10,000 rounds to make a substantial improvement on their transitions or whatever, right? If you get really efficient in your dry fire, you can maybe make that improvement in, just using a couple hundred rounds to go test what you're practicing in dry fire. So I think not only do you get better at learning, but you also get better at practicing.
Yeah. I think the
Agreed.
biggest thing for the reason why it's a bit hard to approach is there's a notion of like, I don't know, you see this everywhere, like in martial arts too. I don't know if you guys do martial arts a lot. I know Connor you do, but there's this notion like you just have lots of mat time or you get lots of pad time that you're just suddenly going to be a god. You're going to just always run good. That's definitely not it at all. You actually have to like know what to do and know what corrections to make, and that's such a critical thing. But I mean it's easy as hell to just go out and shoot matches.
Yep. Yeah, we see a lot of people do that. And if that's
Yeah,
where
I
you
mean,
get your enjoyment, that's okay. But I think that's not the path to getting really good. Well, all right, that was a good one, and I think if anybody has anything else, chime in. But if not, it's my turn, and since you guys took all the good ones, I'm having to go to my number three pick, and but my number three pick is going to be stance, and not in the traditional sense. I don't think like you hear about people talk about stance, and I don't even remember what all they're called. They're like isosceles and the one where one foot's a little bit forward, whatever that is. That's not really
Weaver,
what I'm talking about. Yeah, that one. So that's not really what I'm talking
and then the oh,
about. Calvin's like, oh, those are the ones I practice. No,
Weaver
I
all the
mean,
way, man.
yeah, teacup in it, right? But
Yeah,
so what I mean by stance is I think just keeping like an athletic posture at all times. So kind of like knees bent. You don't have your weight unevenly biased if you can help it. I know sometimes there's like hard leans and things like that at matches, but as much as possible, just being in an athletic position so that you can move quickly without having to, like if you're standing up straight, you see people having to bend down just so that they can push off. So trying to avoid that and already be bent down a little bit is, I think, a big one. So like you guys, I think talked about those raw shooting fundamental skills like grip, being able to look at a spot and bring the gun there, and then knowing when it's acceptable to push the trigger, and then like how to train and how to get better. I think if you do all those things and you also show up to matches and can just get in the habit of keeping yourself in a good athletic stance, you're going to do really well. Like if you just do those things and you're in B class or even A class, I think you can like stomp on everyone else in your class and just like don't try to do anything fancy. Just efficiently run to the spots and shoot the things, and that's it. But what do you guys think about that?
I think a way to verbalize that is to always be shooting in a stance that you can move out of, like so you're ready to move out of position.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. That's exactly what I'm talking about. And so I think I guess this can kind of lead into our next related topic. But so I think we've all seen people who are new to the sport and they're really ambitious, which is super cool. But they maybe put their time and practice ammo and things into probably not the most effective spot when they're new. So what I mean by that is, for example, you see someone who's new and maybe in C class, and instead of practicing their grip or practicing their transitions or those just fundamental skills, they're practicing, I want to call it like fancy footwork or different movement techniques. And in my mind, I think, and y'all can correct me if you think I'm wrong, but in my mind, I think that that effort is better spent just focusing on the things that we talked about, and then you've been running since you're a little kid. Just run between the positions. Don't overthink it too much. But what you haven't been accurately shooting a gun since you were a little kid, probably. So I think that's the hard part at first. But what do y'all think about that? I see Coy's laughing, so I don't know if that's agreement or disagreement.
I was debating whether or not I wanted to comment on all the cool C class people learning the reverse lean and lead foot pivot.
I don't even actually know what those are. So is a reverse lean like leaning into the wall instead of around it? Or?
To be honest, I have no idea myself. But just
Kind of hard to explain without visuals.
Yeah, and so this is the type of stuff I think that at the bleeding edge of the sport, I not that I'm there, but I think at the bleeding edge of the sport, I bet that stuff really starts to matter. However, when you're in B class, I have a hard time seeing how it matters when people are shooting, 5 to 10 penalties a match. It's like, man, your footwork doesn't matter when you're just killing your hit factor with misses and things like that.
yeah, I think you're right. I think this is where what's the phrase where the rubber meets the road. So to tag on to learning theory, there's like training method that goes with it. Um, I'll use the martial arts analogy again just because it's easy. Like you're brand new to karate or whatever. Like, do you start with throat chops or do you start with, I don't know, standing up when you've fallen down? You know what I mean? Like, one's definitely a lot less cool, but you probably need to get up from down more than you need to throat chop. I don't know. Maybe a horrible example.
Yeah, no, I see what you mean. I agree. I think, I mean, not that you should never practice movement. It's like, but it's just like where your percentage of time and effort goes. It's like you see people and it's like they'll have that, like if you just watch their stage run on Instagram, it looks so baller. But then if you go look at the results, it's like they had 6 mics on that stage. It's like I don't know. For me, I would rather practice the basic fundamental skills, even at a master class level. Frankly, I have no idea what I'm doing with those basic skills still. So like that's what I want to practice. But
Yeah, it's definitely not the lowest hanging fruit for the majority of people out there, like, including like GMs. Well, maybe once you get to like the high end of GM, it starts. I think that's where it starts to matter. But I don't know if you guys have noticed, but I've seen some GMs who like look pretty rough. Like it wouldn't look good for Instagram. Like if you showed an average person some of these GMs who are slaying it, like they hit everything, their transitions are accurate, they're really smooth, but they just don't look fast and they're not doing any fancy moves. They're just really efficient and they hit everything they need to. And honestly, it's boring to watch. And maybe that's why a lot of these new, people who are new to the sport, they want to practice the cool stuff. Like that, and then like reloads. I think people spend a lot of time on reloads, where in USPSA, even if you're shooting production, a lot of those reloads are soaked into your movements, and then draws. People spend a lot of time on draws. Don't get me wrong, you need to be good at drawing your gun, but it's also a very, very small percentage of your time in USPSA.
Yeah, especially when oftentimes you're starting somewhere on a stage that you're not actually going to shoot from. So your draw is soaked up with maybe like a 3 or 4 steps into your first shooting position anyways.
I bet you can still be competitive maybe even at masterclass with like a sub 2-second draw, because there's so many times where you don't get a fire, so you move to a spot that takes you about 2 seconds to get to or more.
Yeah, you probably wouldn't make it into master class because I don't think the classification system will allow you to draw that slow and make M. But
I mean, you could just shoot. You could just shoot a rifle. I mean,
yeah, you don't even draw. You just shoot from the hip, right?
I don't know anything about that.
The shoulder thing that goes up.
Well, cool. So I think maybe we can all agree. It's safe to say if you're like in B, A, honestly, probably even M class, and you just like work on the basic stuff that we mentioned, that's probably still your lowest hanging fruit. I think for me, it definitely is.
The only bad thing about that stuff is you put on Instagram, nobody likes it.
Yeah, that's true. That's probably why literally no one's going to watch this episode also. So stay tuned for fancy footwork skills coming up.
Well, I mean, okay, so going back to like things that you think you could tell a C class, like I think this could go all the way up even to a GM class. It's like even at your local or even level 2 match. Understanding what it takes to shoot a penalty-free match. Like, it doesn't matter if you necessarily hit a D hit, but obviously any kind of misses or no shoots really penalizes you, kind of thing. So, like, what is it going to take at your speed, at your accuracy capability, is it going to take for you to have no penalties? And make sure you're not shooting any shots while you're outside of the shooting area, obviously.
Yeah, I think if you fall kind of, I'm sure you guys all have heard this a million times. So for people that might not have, they say newer shooters typically fall into like either turtles or hosers. And so I think to your point, Matt, if you're on the hoser side, I think kind of just like forcing yourself to make it through a match without penalties is pretty valuable. If you're already, because like if you're a turtle, which is kind of what I am more naturally, you're probably oftentimes already finishing matches with maybe a penalty or two, or so if that. So on the flip side, if you're doing that, then maybe like don't worry about it quite as much for a few matches and try and hustle a little bit more.
Yeah.
But
look, point the gun at the alpha zone. Make sure you hit every single target.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So, all right. I think I already blabbed mine with the fancy footwork, but let's we can go around one more time, and I want to hear one shooting skill that you think maybe not that it isn't important, but that isn't as important as a lot of people say. So, and if you can't think of one, it's okay. But Calvin, you can go first again.
Oh, I already went. I talked about the reloads and the.
Oh, you're right. You did. Good call. Yeah. Obviously, the most important drill you can do, as Calvin said, is one reload line at the range. You want to spend all of your time and ammo doing that. Don't worry about grip after the reload. Just, slam the trigger. But okay. Anyway, that's a good one. Matt, in case I forgot already, did you already say one, or do you have a shooting skill that you think maybe isn't quite as important as most people think it is?
Let's actually not go with a shooting skill for me, but more like a life skill is budgeting, because this sport is expensive as hell.
It's not important. So
you're saying budgeting is not as important as people say it is. You should just throw all those primers on that credit card.
Yes.
I like it.
Go to Natchez and buy yourself a case of primers.
All right, guys.
Forget the fact that you're going to have
another piece of wisdom. All right, cool. You got anything?
I do not.
Okay, fair enough. Well, I think that wraps up all the topics that I had in mind. Does anybody have anything else to throw out there?
No, not really.
I think we're good.
Cool. Well, do you guys want to shout out where you could be found on social media if you want to give that information out publicly? If not, you can pass.
Calvin.
Yeah.
Mine is at Firepower United.
That's my username.
You know how many
too.
times I get called coy at the local matches here?
I did you the favor of growing a mustache, right? I'm helping.
It still doesn't work. Oh man.
All right. Well, no one wants to give out their Instagram names, so you're gonna have to look for us.
All about the opposite.
Anyways, yep. All right. Thanks for listening, everyone. Catch us next time for more mundane USPSA content.
Yay!